Today, we're going to look at the invasion of Poland and the effect that this will have on Europe and the progress of the war. As we know, that analyzing cause and effect is a very important part of us being historians. So, just to remind you where we are in the story right now, the picture that you see here is Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, after the Munich Agreement, the moment he got off the aeroplane. He has just met with Hitler, and Hitler made promises that said he will not use his military that he has been building up over the years. So, this is just to explain to you where we're going with this and what levels you need to be able to achieve for different grades. In another cartoon, we have from a famous British cartoonist called David Lowe. He obviously hated Hitler. We can clearly see the bias if we look closely enough. There's a couple of elements I want you to focus on here. As always, everything in a political cartoon has a purpose. Every single thing. So here we have this figure, and we can recognize from the mustache that this is Adolf Hitler. And here we have a bag that says Deutschland über alles. This means Germany is better than everything. And here we have a bed. All of these countries being in bed together, meaning they are working together. The ex-French and British family, meaning they were part of the family. And here we have Austria. And Austria, we know what happened to Austria as part of the Anschluss. Austria already went into the bag. Then, here we see, remember this was in 1937. This was in 1937. Czechoslovakia is on their way in, and Poland is next, and Hungary and Yugoslavia. This is his prediction about how Germany is going to take over everything. Now, this map shows us exactly how it happened in 1938. Germany took Czechoslovakia over, starting with the Sudetenland, but they installed their own kind of government there, and next was Poland. They wanted to invade Poland for a couple of reasons that we're going to look at next. Here we see that's important is Warsaw. This is the capital of Poland. Here we have two other sources of this is actual colorized video from the invasion. Why I chose these two sources to show you here is, yes, on this side we have for the time a pretty advanced mechanized army on Germany's side, meaning they use machines, they use vehicles. This is what a mechanized army means, and this is what it looks like. Here we can see elements on the left. Here we can see elements of mechanized army with the bikes, but we also see that much of the German army during the Second World War was horse-drawn, meaning they used a lot of horses, still in the Second World War. Contrary to what movies and books would have you believe, that was indeed the case. They still needed a lot of animal power to get people and goods moving around. So months before the invasion of Poland by Germany, German newspapers and the Nazi leadership in Germany had begun a national and international campaign accusing the Polish government, of organizing and tolerating violent ethnic cleansing of Germans living in Poland. This means that Germany and German newspapers began telling these stories in their own country and in other countries that says that the Polish government is ethnically cleansing Germans. in Poland. Now, ethnic cleansing is a pretty brutal deal. There's many examples of this throughout Europe, throughout history, where there's mass killings or they kick out members of one ethnic group. This means usually this in the cases like that happened in Africa or sometimes in Asia is based on their tribes. This can also mean their race, what color they are, or what religion they are from. Usually this happens when one dominant tribe or race in the area starts accusing the other one, and then one night or one day they start kicking them out and killing them. So this is what the Germans wanted their own people to believe and the world to believe, even though this was not true. And we were going to look at incidences where you can see that this how this fabrication, very clever fabrication, happened. So by August 22 in 1939, Hitler and his generals created something that was called Operation Himmler. This plan was to fake, boys and girls, to fake incidents of Polish aggression. So if we put two and two together here, we see German newspapers were spreading news nationally and internationally about fake incidents. In the world that we live in right now, there is a word for that, and you guessed it, it's called fake news. So they came up with this idea with Operation Himmler to do false flag operations. Now, the false flag operation is basically where you do something to a country and then you say it was the other country that did it. So it's an appearance that somebody else did it. Meaning you do something, but then you blame it on somebody else and say, no, that's the person that did it to you. It wasn't us. Usually to cause some sort of conflict, false flags operations. So, Operation Imbler. I'm going to give you a quote here that Hitler said to his generals in 1939. He says, I will provide propagandistic, causes belli. This is Latin that means to provoke. So he will provide a propaganda that would provoke the people and the world. He says its credibility doesn't matter. The victor will not be asked whether he told the truth. Even though this type of act is shameful, it is proven throughout history to be true. There's a very famous quote that says, history gets written by the victors, meaning that the side that wins gets to write the history of what happened. So they get to decide what the people in the future would know. So he had confidence in this matter that they would win and people would not ask him if he told the truth because they would write the history. So Operation Himmler is a huge success. Most German and some international radio services were completely convinced that Poland did actually attack Germany. There were three main issues, three main events. One was at a radio station, one was on a border post, and I can't remember the other one. So here we have a quote here from the BBC News. I mean, they believed this propaganda. They swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. I mean, here we see a quote there. They say, there have been reports of an attack on a radio station in Gliwice. which is just across the Polish border in Germany. Now they say where they get they acknowledge their source here. They say the German news agency reports the attack came about 8 p.m. this evening when the Poles forced their way into the radio station and began broadcasting a statement in Polish. Within a quarter of hour, say reports, the Poles were overpowered by German police who opened fire on them. Several of the Poles were reported killed, but the numbers are not yet known. So we can see that this operation was a success. It even reached England, which was at this point not willing to go to war and very careful about what they're doing. They completely believed it. So 1939, on September the 1st, Germany invades Poland and defeats their military by the 27th. Here we see a map of how this invasion actually happened. It was very well orchestrated and executed, since they were still close to their own border. By the 27th of September, after heavy shelling and bombing, Warsaw surrendered to Germany. To the source of the bottom left here, we can see the state of what Poland looked like. We can see the building, the rubble here, just holes through the building where you can see the sky. Warsaw took a heavy toll because the Poles did not surrender until the very, very last people. The Polish resistance is one of the most tragic, horrific, and brave instances of, of indigenous resistance that I have ever seen. Well, there was a couple of reasons why Poland was so easily defeated. Poland mobilized late. In fact, this is for me the most interesting reason because what happened is France and England said, okay, we can see Germany is becoming aggressive, but don't mobilize your entire army. Otherwise, they might think that you are going to attack them. So they decided to play it safe and not mobilize their entire army. So by September the 1st, when the invasion happened, they were not completely prepared. The Poles were also heavily outnumbered. The Germans sent a lot of people and 2,000 tanks, 1,000 aircraft, and they used those tanks, aircraft, and infantry in a new tactic that was called the Blitzkrieg. Here on the right, we see a picture of what the Blitzkrieg looks like. We see the infantry coming out here, the infantry coming out and running. We see the tanks, and then finally, we will see the aircraft by. So they used those three to work very, very closely together. This new tactic was a new tactic in warfare and developed by the Germans, and it proved to be highly effective. So effective that in the modern world, this is still the tactic that is used today. Now, this is the timeline just to put our thoughts into the big picture again. How did we get here? Hitler becomes the leader of Germany in 1933, the chancellor, and he makes it very clear that he wants to rip up the Treaty of Versailles. And by 1935, it becomes very clear to the whole world and the people that's looking that Germany is starting to build up her army. Again, this is against the Treaty of Versailles. 1936, troops are sent to the Rhineland. Again, this goes against the Treaty of Versailles. And this upsets France a lot because the Rhineland is just on their border. 1938, the Austrian Anschluss. Austria joins forces with Germany, and Hitler says they are Germans too, because they wanted to be Germans. This also was forbidden by the Treaty of Versailles. In 1938 to 1939, Czechoslovakia is invaded, which means the Munich Agreement that we talked about before, it leads to the Munich Agreement, and after that, Hitler promises not to use his military again, but that promise didn't last long as Hitler invades Poland and he breaks the Munich Agreement. Your task, boys and girls. The first task that we have here, this part, I want you to think about this, and I want you to think about this carefully. Imagine that you are Neville Chamberlain. You get the news that Hitler has broken the Munich Agreement, he invades Poland. How do you respond as a leader, as a powerful leader in the world at that time? You've got a big economy, you've got worldwide influence, you've got colonies all over the world, and you've got the biggest navy in the world. What do you do? I gave you 3 ideas here at the bottom to help you think about what can your possible solutions be. Call upon all of your allies, meaning call all your friends together and go to war with Germany. You call a meeting with the League of Nations to discuss the new version of the Treaty of Versailles. To do this part, this one is a little bit harder, is you have to research a little bit about what was the League of Nations. We unfortunately do not have the time, the academic time, to go into the League of Nations and what their faults were, but it should be really easy information to find. Then we have option C. You can appeal to the Polish government to kick Hitler out, and you offer military support to make this happen. Just to give you a heads up, something similar did happen. And so if you choose to do this later, I expect to see some familiarity with what the actual events were. Now, your research activity that I expect you to complete in your online copybook would be to research what was the effect of Hitler's invasion of Poland on Poland, on the Polish people. Because this invasion will have a big effect on the nation that it is involved in. Now, boys and girls, I hope you have a wonderful day, that you are all happy in your isolation, you wash your hands, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you again.